bring in Christopher Mad Dog Russo, host of Mad Dog Unleashed. Awkward situations here. Let me ask you the poll question there. Out of all of those, Shohei with the Angels, the Mavericks situation, the Ravens with Lamar, and what's going on with the Packers and the Jets and Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, good morning, Dan.
Hi, bud.
It's a pleasure to be on. I love the golf stuff you did there, and you're right. Those live players, I would take a run at Koepka. He won last week. He's healthier, plus 400. Was it 4,000, right? What'd you say it was?
Yeah, 4,000.
I mean, my God, that's a steal. I'm with you 1,000% on that. I think the Ravens is with Lamar. First off, Ohtani's going to last 6 months. It's too early to go big deal on that yet. The Packers eventually will make this trade as it is. And, you know, the Kyrie thing is a little awkward. I totally agree. But I think Lamar right now, the draft forthcoming, you know, he doesn't like them. You know, I don't think it's a question of them not liking him, but I don't think he's worth, they don't want to pay him $200 million. Then they got the compensation with the 2 picks and everything else. I think that's the most awkward one. That's a very good job by your guys with that, the Nets with the 4 of them. I love those 4, but I would say Lamar with the Ravens. I think that's the most awkward thing at the moment.
You think the Angels with Ohtani, that gets worked out long term?
I'm not sure. The one thing I would say there, Dan, is I don't think Marino wants to be the owner who trades Ohtani in July. So even if Ohtani and the team is awful, and, you know, they may not be, who knows, you know, they go off to a decent start, that even if they're, you know, 20 out on July 15th, I don't think he wants to trade Ohtani. Do you want to be the owner who lets Ohtani walk? If Ohtani stays and he gives him what you would consider a decent offer to sign a long-term deal, and then he leaves, you don't get pounded. If you let him go at the deadline, that's telling everybody you had no plans of signing him anyway, and you look bad. So I don't think Marino, who's 80 years old, wants that on his resume. So I think Ohtani will be an Angel no matter how bad they are all year long.
Yeah, I just wonder if you could get the biggest haul in baseball history for Ohtani. And granted, I wouldn't want to be the GM who traded him away, but I'd also like to be the GM who brought a winner to the Angels. And I don't think that you're going to win with Ohtani and Trout. I mean, you got the 2 favorites, 2 of the top 3 favorites for MVP in the American League, and you might not even make the playoffs.
Throw in Rendon, too. The problem with, you're right, the problem with getting a long haul back, there's only a couple of teams you could trade him to that feel they could sign him long term, Dodgers and Yankees. Or maybe the Mets. Those 3. I forget the Yankees. Mets and Dodgers would be those 2. So, you know, if the Indians or the Guardians wanted him, what are you going to get back? Because they know they can't sign him. It's a 2-month rental.
Yeah.
If you trade him to the Dodgers, and if you're Marino, do you want to trade Ohtani to the LA Dodgers? I mean, geez, 30 miles away. And, you know, maybe you trade him to the Mets, and maybe you can, you know, fleece their farm system. I guess that's possible. But I still think at the end of the day, Ohtani will play for the Angels all year long, no matter what the record is in July. That's what I would say right now.
I gave a stat earlier that all 12 games on Thursday were played in under 3 hours, which is nice, but are these rules having an impact here?
Oh, I think they are, Dan. I mean, listen, opening day was 317 last year. This year was 240-something, 245. Throw in the idea that there's a lot more stolen bases. A single is a single. I think the rules, you know, listen, I think it's been so much better. Look at the Sunday night game. How many Sunday night games last forever? And at 10-10, I'm sorry, at 9-10, the game was at 7. At 9-10, they're in the top of the 9th inning with the Rangers and the Phillies. So I think it's so much better. I think it's long overdue. I think it's it's just you can sit there and watch it without, you know, sitting there for 4 hours to watch a ball game, you know, over game 8 of 162. So I think it's a big plus. I do think you've seen it this week. Machado, Tim Anderson, especially with Machado, the umpires are going to enforce it. So I don't think you're going to see a situation where the umpires would get lenient and, you know, not enforce that pitch clock. So I think overall it's been a big plus. I think it's helped baseball. And I've said this a lot, and I don't know how you feel about it, Danny, and I wasn't a big WBC guy, but I do think baseball's got a lot more momentum to start the year than they've had in a long time. They had 4.5 million people watch that last game on FS1, Japan and the United States. They had Ohtani and Trout. I didn't get that wrapped up in it, but a lot of people did. And then you throw in all the rules. So I think baseball did had a very good start to their season. You know, when, you know, you got the Masters, you got the Final Four. So I think baseball had a good start to their year. I really do.
Yeah,
You got to be happy.
we talked to the commissioner last week, and I said, this might be your legacy. We might look back 20 years from now and say, you know what Commissioner Manfred did, and he might have saved the game is maybe a little overly hyped, but he modernized the game. He might be remembered for modernizing the game.
100%, Dan. And I think this is a commissioner who needed a legacy moment. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, commissioners get killed in all the sports anyway. But for whatever the reason, Silva doesn't get killed because the players love him. Goodell, the NFL is impregnable, so he can deal with it, and nobody cares about the hockey that much. So really, Manfred, he gets pounded all the time. He got pounded last year at the lockout. He gets pounded at times when sometimes when the piece of metal with the World Series. His verbiage can get him in trouble.
Yeah.
And I think unwarranted, and they're not fair about it. But I think in this situation, he comes across very well. And I think this was a good deal. So I think he needs a legacy moment. So good for him if this turns out to be exactly that.
He's Chris Mad Dog Russo, host of Mad Dog Unleashed on Sirius XM Channel 82, host of High Heat on MLB Network. Draymond Green says, oh, great. You want to have a minimum 65 games to be eligible for postseason honors and first, second, third team All-NBA. You're going to have bums who are going to make these teams because they're going to play more than 65 games, and maybe some of these stars won't. I don't know what the solution here is, Chris, but is that asking too much to say you got to play in at least 65 games each season?
No, Dan. I'm with you 1,000%. I mean, geez, for the money they charge to go to these games, and we can't guarantee, for instance, I had a call a week or so ago who spent $600 to get 2 tickets to see the Philly at Denver, Embiid didn't play in the game. Yeah. Now, I know he had calf soreness, and he's played, 65 games for the year. I'm with you 1,000%. Bird, Jabbar, Wilt, Russell, Jordan. I mean, they must be just, really? You can't play 75 ball games in an NBA season? I mean, to me, it's a joke. And that's 20% of the season you miss if you don't play 65 games to be eligible to win the MVP. I mean, is that asking too much? I mean, listen, when you and we got contracts, we're supposed to work a certain amount of shows. We're here in the big events. You and I are here in the Masters. We're here with this. We're here with that. Yeah. There's a sense of responsibility. You can't play 70 games in an NBA regular season. Is the NBA regular season that worthless that, it means nothing and you can get away with playing 56 games? I mean, that's what they're telling you. Well, then why are they charging me a fortune for the tickets? Why are they making a big deal about the playing thing? Who cares about the playing? It make any difference. Don't play, play 40 games. We separate who the good teams are and then play months of NBA playoff basketball. They got a major problem with it. You and I are old school. Yeah. But if you can't play 65 games, my God, that's a disgrace if you think you should still win an MVP. And the MVP should mean something. It should mean something, the MVP award. You should want to win an MVP. What the players are telling you by moaning and gloating about 65 games is they don't care about the MVP. That's sad. That's sad.
How do you keep the Jets Aaron Rodgers story fresh on your show?
You don't. I haven't talked about it this week. Now, you and I are old school hosts, and that's why people our fans like it because you and I care about a little baseball. We care about Masters on opening day on a Thursday. You and I care about the NCAA tournament. You and I care about just NFL football. And so as a result of that, you did Sports Center for 100 years. You care about that stuff. I've been doing this since 89. I care about all the sports. And now today, if it's almost like it's football 24/7. And when I can get around and get away from it for a month or two, and this is the time you can do it, right around the end of the season, before a week or two before the draft, I'm going to do it. So for me to sit there and talk hour upon hour about Lamar Jackson, to sit there and break down the Jets giving up a second or a first-round pick, Rodgers go, not go, enough already. I can't. Let me do something else. So I enjoy this time of the year where we can break and do a little golf. We can do a little NCAA. Maybe we can do a little NHL first round of the playoffs. How good are the Bruins? So from that standpoint, I enjoy this period, and I'm happy. I do enough of the Jackson on the ESPN that one day a week. I haven't done it at all this week on the radio. I haven't done it. Maybe you have. I haven't done that much.
No, because I can't add to it. And that's why I always say, if I can, and I can advance it, then I will. I won't check a box and say, I've got to talk about Aaron Rodgers every day. I've got to talk about LeBron every day. I don't want, or Dak Prescott every day. I just don't want to do that. That's not fair to the audience to say, hey, I'm going to troll you because these are the top stories or top people we're supposed to talk about every day.
Well, you and I, again, I don't script a show. I don't think you do either. I mean, you go in there and, you have an idea what you want to talk about, but you go in there and you do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, too many people say, oh, I better do football. God, it's football. I better do the draft. I better do a little more. And that's what people want to hear about. I don't look at it that way. I'll do what interests me. And the day that it's not interesting to the people out there is the day I'm going to leave. Chris, we're not interested in what you think. I don't care about the Sunshine Double and Medvedev and Alcaraz. Once they tell me that, I got to leave. And you're the same way, Dan. You're the same way.
Are you all in?
To talk about what you want to talk about.
Are you all in on Rodgers going to the Jets? Is it the right move for
I'm
the
all
Jets?
In with that.
Okay.
I think that's good for the Jets. Yes, I am.
Okay.
I think the Jets have to do it. They haven't made the playoffs in millions of years. They've won one Super Bowl. They sort of have a now team. I wouldn't give up the first-round pick. There's no reason to do that. Packers are dead. Packers have to get rid of him. And there's nobody else.
Yeah.
Tennessee, he's not going to go to Tennessee. So the Packers are really, they have nowhere to go. So it's going to be a second-round pick, but I am all in on the Jets. They have to bring him in here. Have to. And I think Rodgers has plenty left.
Who's closer to winning a championship, the Jets or the Knicks?
The Jets. It's so hard to win there, Dan. The Knicks have had a good year. I mean, they're going to be 50-50 to beat Cleveland. The best players always win. Do the Knicks have the top 10 player on their team? They really don't. Embiid, Tatum, Kawhi, Curry, Jokic, Anthony Davis. The Knicks don't have Brunson, and Brunson's very good, but he's not, he's not Giannis. And those are the guys that end up winning the championships. So the Knicks got the respectability, made the playoffs like they all do in the NBA. If they ever win a round against Cleveland, we'll have a parade in New York. But the Jets with the quarterback and the fact that, beating Mahomes won't be easy. But I do think the Jets are closer than the Knicks are to winning a title.
I'll leave you with this. If I gave a New York sports fan one wish.
Wow, that's a good question. That's a very good question.
Now, my suggestion would be, and I'm not a New York fan, is to get a new owner for the Knicks.
Okay. You're looking at it from a standpoint of not playoff success.
It could be anything. Because I don't think you get playoff success if you have that.
I think you hit it. I think that's a brilliant job. I think that I wouldn't have thought of that. That's it. It's Dolan. Now, that is tempered a little bit lately because the Knicks have had a good year. And they brought Brunson in, and Leon Rose has done a pretty good job, and they like Thibodeau. And for the most part, he stayed out of the way. Now he's gotten wrapped up with this stupid, facial recognition nonsense,
I know.
Which is so petty.
Yeah.
But and the Rangers are good, and he owns them too. So you got to look at it from that standpoint. But that's a good one, Dan.
But did Dolan ever get mad at you or Mike when you guys criticized? And did he hold it against you guys when you would criticize him?
He was pretty good. A little bit, but we took his side with Marv Albert, which was a big deal. And they had the issue with Marv, and it was about the money, and they let him go, and they brought Breen in and everything else. It's always now he says, he doesn't listen to me necessarily on Sirius, so I'm not as wrapped up in it. And what might annoy Dolan compared to say the old days 20 years ago when you might say something. We were very pro Checkets, and so that bothered him because he made the change and Checkets left, and the Knicks had been terrible, and we were pro Van Gundy, and they had a problem there too. So there was probably a time in the late 90s, early 2000s where he was annoyed at us. But I think for the most part, I haven't had a lot of dealings with him. And remember, he was very good to me and Mike with the show that we did at times at Radio City. We did that reunion day.
Yeah.
He donated the building. He gave us the Garden of Dreams monument. And, we did the whole show for the MSG charity, and he was great with that. So we basically have had a good relationship with him. But I think your point is well taken. I think the average fan would say, let's get a new Knick owner. I think you're right.
Good
100%.
Good to talk to you, Mad Dog. Thanks for
You're the
joining us.
best, Danny. You know how much I enjoy you. You're the best.
Have a
Keep
great
it going.
weekend. Thank you,
You
bud.
too.
That's Christopher Mad Dog Russo.